Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at a sort of urban sketch situation, and then I'm going to be adding in some figures into a drawing where, if you look at the reference picture, there are no figures. So why would you want to do that? I don't hear you ask. I think sometimes figures can add a little bit of energy to a sketch. You know, most urban spaces do feature people. It's quite hard for people, to stay still so that you can draw them. So it may be that you want to do what I do, which is quite often I'll do a sketch of the buildings and things, and then I'll add in the figures afterwards. So there's a link in the description to download the image if you want to do that, and you can have a sketch along with me. Or, sorry, that noise in the background, it's the dog pottering around. Oh, she's getting up in the bed. That's it, you lie down. Good girl. So it should be a fun little sketch. So we've got this scene here, which is absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's sort of Main Street America. I believe this is a place called Logan in Utah. These buildings don't look massively old, but I think it's just a nice sort of empty scene that we can place some figures in. So my intention is to have a couple sitting here, maybe sort of relaxing, reading books or something, and then a couple of people walking along this path here, and then quite a few people on the street in the background. Now, I don't necessarily want them to be particularly accurately rendered. I don't mind if they're sort of slightly abstract shapes. The idea is just to add some extra colour and a little bit of life into this scene, which is a really nice looking street and all, but it just looks a bit empty. And one of the nice things about urban sketches is you get to sketch people. Now, you don't often get a lot of time to sketch people because they tend to zoom past, and I don't know about you, but I'm not that quick at sketching, but you can often sort of get a feel for the shape of them, or a little bit of movement, or just add a little bit of life really into your sketching. So this is a really nice sketch in its own right to do. So I'm going to do this in a line and wash style, a typical of my sort of urban sketching stuff, and then I'm going to add some figures in. So the one thing I need to think about before I start doing this is where I'm going to leave space for the figures. Now, I quite like the idea, as I say, of having a couple sitting here on this area, here, and maybe somebody there walking, and maybe a couple of kids there or something, and then some people on this pavement. So I'm going to sketch this scene out, and then I'm going to leave some space for those people. So tonight I'm working in my Etcher sketchbook again. I've been doing a few sketches in this recently. You might remember that one, and a few more. It's a good little pad, this. The more I use it, the more I like the paper. I mean, some of this stuff I did on holiday when I was on a sailing holiday in Cornwall. These are quite rough and ready because I was with the kids, so I didn't have a lot of time to sit and indulge myself. With drawing, and this is another demo I've done recently. This is one that is for me. This is a building in Sheffield. I love the line work on that. I'm going to finish that off at some point. Okay, so let's get cracking. So I'm going to use my Coeco Sport fountain pen. One of the things about the scene, as you can see from the reference image, is it's a bit truncated at the bottom. I'd like to see a little bit more of that wall so that I could maybe put a figure in, somebody sitting there. So what I think I'll do is I'll add that wall in there, and that's just to give me a bit of a sense of, so that means I'm going to probably have to add some of that wall in there. It's an interesting brick texture on this wall. It's obviously some kind of modern. So yeah, literally starting with that bit of wall. Done, finished. Okay, so I'm starting with the foreground, the stuff in the foreground, because that naturally sits on top of the stuff in the background, if that makes sense. Now, there's lots of different ways of working. Sometimes I don't honestly think that much, which is, I know it's a bit bad, but sometimes I'll just, it'll feel more instinctive to start in one area than another, if you know what I mean. Now, this picture is on Unsplash. Unsplash is a wonderful resource for sort of free reference pictures for all your drawing needs, and I shall put a link below and you can download that. So here we have this lamppost, which is a bit of a beast. Now, interesting thing about perspective, you can see here what we're seeing is the top of the lamppost, whereas when you get up here, we're sort of, what we're doing is we're looking up to the lamppost because we can effectively see the underneath of that canopy there. Now, it doesn't do any harm to sort of exaggerate that a bit, because it really does help the sort of human eye to perceive how that perspective works. Now, there's another lamppost a bit further back here. Putting that other bit in there. Right, so what's next? I could actually do some of this side, or I could, thinking about it, I could put a figure in here. Now, I know that figure is roughly going to be about half that height of that lamppost. I'm guesstimating. So what I could do now is I could find a figure from another picture and sort of sketch that in, or I could just completely busk it. Now, I think what I'll do in this case is I'm going to busk it. And I'm going to imagine we've got somebody who is perhaps older. Maybe carrying a bag. On their shoulder. There we go. So that's that person there. And then here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw somebody sitting, maybe reading. And they can be leaning against someone and just relaxing in the sun there. And that person is going to be sitting. It's an interesting pair of shoes this guy's got on. I wonder if he could be reading a book. I'm assuming it's a he, but it doesn't matter. Now, I would say that I'm not always massively confident doing figures. It's not my natural subject. I don't know what my natural subject would be. I guess probably boats and vehicles as much as anything. So this isn't me showing you how to draw amazing people. That's not the point of this. The point of this is me to show you how I sort of have a go at it. And I'm not saying it's, you know, these people are brilliantly rendered or anything like that. What I'm kind of trying to show you is you can just have a go, really. Which is essentially what I'm doing here. So that person is there, and we've got some foliage behind them. We've got all sorts of stuff going on here. I'm going to draw some different shapes to sort of suggest some different plants. And I'm still working on the foliage because the buildings are going to go very much sort of behind that, if you know what I mean. We've got some of these sort of stick up like that. If you look quite closely, you can see how they are at the top. Often with trees, I think you don't need a lot of texture on trees to sort of describe them. But often it's the sticky out bits. If you can get the character of the sticky out bits right, it can sort of tell you quite a bit about the sort of tree it is. Foliage here. So there's these weird spiky things. No, it's interesting. I have no idea about foliage in Utah. I could tell you about heather on the moors in the Peak District and sphagnum moss and all the weird, moist, slightly sticky things we have growing in the UK. But there's not a lot of big, spiky, dry things. America does that pretty well. I have a couple of patrons in Utah, so I shan't list them, but hi to you guys if you're watching this. Maybe one day I'll come over there on a painting trip, a big sketching adventure. Okay, on this side then, the next thing back is the lamppost. So let's sketch that one in. Where are we going to go? Where is that? I'm going to say it's about here. Again, I'm sort of slightly making this up. But our home dog's below, it doesn't matter. Now it's interesting that these lampposts don't have the cross braces on. In the UK, a lot of the older style lampposts have a cross brace on there, and that was so that the lamplighters could rest their ladders against it when all the lamps were gas powered. And interestingly enough, the type of gas that was used varied. Originally, some of the first gas was from whale oil in places like Whitby. Believe it or not. And I wonder what it smelled like. Probably a bit whaley. Opus 88 fountain pen. So what I'm doing here is I am just trying to ensure that the figures that are in the foreground sort of leap a little bit forward, so you get a real sense just with the line work of them being a little bit closer to camera. So this whole area, so the brickwork, these guys here, I still don't know what's happening. Is that hair or is that a hoodie? I think I'll make it hair. He's a weird looking chap. Right. What I probably need to do is do something similar on this side. Colour the foliage, colour the people. I might put a tiny bit of pink on that building because I like that building, and then do the sky. And I'll leave it at that. Let's try it just as an experiment. I mean, what could go wrong? It's only paper. So let's do that. So as is my wont, I'm going to add in some water first for the sky. This is very much the way I tend to do skies. Nice and fast and a little bit loose. And then I shall mix some blue. So in this case, I'm going to use some cobalt. I should have really activated these colours first with a bit of sprizzing, but and we've got some dark up here, so let's go with the dark and then pull that through. Let that do its thing. Same up here. And then maybe just some lines like that. There we go. And I'm not going to do anything more on there. So I think that's really fun. I like that. I think it's not over-coloured, if you know what I mean. I could go and colour the whole thing and paint these people in a bit more with their hair colour and stuff, but I don't want to do it. It's got a bit of life. I think it's kind of a nice value as it is, really. I don't know how you feel. Do you think it's unfinished? Or do you think it's maybe a bit too much colour? Let me know your thoughts. I love like a minimal colour setup. It's not something that I think I necessarily do enough of. There's some interesting bits in this as well. I don't know whether you can see, maybe if I zoom in a bit here. Here where I've been using that Daniel Smith sap green with the undersea green, it works quite well to get a bit more 3D effect to the foliage, but you could do the same thing by just mixing a little bit more of a blue in with a sort of sap green. I mean, you could mix all that from primaries if you wanted. The sky, when you saw how quick that was to do, it's literally wet, and then you just drop a little bit of paint in there, and that's got some interesting little effects and things in it. Dead simple. These dots of colour on the high street, slightly abstract figures. I don't mind that, you know. And then this foreground, no spatters. So the thing that I would say that I think makes this picture fun and it makes it work in a way is that it's got single lines in the background, it's got some thicker lines in the foreground, and then these lampposts just sort of draw you in a bit. So it's got some nice layering to it. It's a bit crowded on the page. Could do with a bit more space around it there maybe, but we've already extended it down a bit. Anyway, I'm chuntering. So yeah, let's go speak to the other fella, see what he's got to say. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a fun one. Often I think adding figures into urban sketches just livens them up a bit, to be honest. What I quite like doing is doing some quite detailed, regular, line work for the buildings. And then when it comes to doing the sketches, I'll just do some carrot shapes or even some circles or ovals. You can be quite abstract with it. And it's really fun to have a play at that. Get a big piece of paper, do some doodling, and just, have a think about different ways you could draw figures within a sort of urban sketch. There is some tutorials on my Patreon that feature some of this stuff, and you can access my Patreon for a small monthly fee. But yeah, so there you go. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. So I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.